Hey, my name is Matt Odell, and this is my 2.5 turbo build. Some of you may know about this car already because it's been around for a couple years now. It was in my original first vehicle, which was a Mark V Rabbit, and started in A, and I've built it up to what I want it to be. And now I'm rebuilding it and putting it in a new shell. Y'all will probably have seen some pictures of the GTI. If you follow me on Instagram, that's where a lot of my updates go to. I don't do a lot of filming right now, but I try to take pictures of most of the stuff I do so I can incorporate it into a video. But this is everything. It's a bone stock motor, stock intake manifold. Does have upgraded injectors. They're Bosch 550s. I've ran all sorts of turbos, as you see over there. There are a couple sitting over there in the scrap pile. Big turbos, small turbos, internal wastegate, external. I've tried it all. It's running an 034 Motorsports tune, which isn't highly recommended because there's like nobody running it, but it was cheap on Black Friday, so I pulled the plug and bought it, and it goes all right when it's actually, when you're putting what you're supposed to on it. At this point, now that I'm rebuilding it, I'm putting the proper stuff on it. I have a Precision 5858, which is what it calls for. I got a nice tile. I think that's a 38 millimeter. And then the manifold, which is the most interesting part, is a stock manifold turned into a log manifold. It's capped off, put a V-band flange on it, and I just use this little charge section for the O2 sensor. And that also allows me to customize it and however I want, really. So I got a nice top mount. I've ran the turbo there before. It doesn't melt the valve cover or anything, but you definitely do have to have an exhaust because it'll burn your master cylinder and anything else that it's pointed at, especially with a hood on. I'm probably going to run top mount to start and build the downpipe eventually. Just installed the Spulin 6-speed shifter today. I'm kind of iffy on the quality on this. I don't know if I love it or hate it yet. It's kind of not great. First 3 seconds, one of those clips broke on me. So now I'm down a clip, but good thing I got a bunch laying around. This one's an extra one I had. But it's so tight in here that it doesn't even really, I've had to work this a lot. Put a bunch of grease in there, and it still doesn't really want to come back by itself. So we'll see how it goes. As for the 6-speed, it's got a stage 4 6-puck solid clutch with a lightweight flywheel from eBay. It's a Clutch Max. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. This car with the 5-speed, I ran the 5-speed version of their clutch for over 2 years in A, and then I boosted it, didn't change the clutch because I put the stage 4 in there thinking that, someday I'm going to boost it, because I was already stockpiling parts for about a year before I started putting it together for the first time. And it held up. And I mean, this tune is only rated for sub 300 torque. So, I mean, it's nothing crazy anyways. So I put another eBay clutch in there. It was about $450 US. So not bad for a clutch, in my opinion. I didn't want to buy like a $1,000, $1,500 clutch, that was, stage 2 and wouldn't be able to take any more power. But sometimes eBay clutches are shit, some people say. But I had good experience with the first one, so did another one. We'll see how it goes. I'll put the specs of the tune on the screen somewhere so you can see your required hardware and how much it puts out, supposedly. Like, I have a couple videos of when I had a proper working wastegate and a good sized turbo on this a while back, and it would spin the tires off, that's for sure, and it had quite a bit of torque, so hopefully this will be even better than that, since it's a good turbo and good wastegate and everything's been gone through at this point. I've redone all the wire harnesses and rewrapped them all. I still got one more little spot to fix on that guy. I noticed that afterwards, so I might buy a connector or something and resolder that in. But I redid all those coil packs. Got a catch can set up in progress. This goes to the manifold down there, and that's a check valve that I stole off a brake booster. I got it coming down to the oil breather, and just a T right there, so that'll go to the catch can, and then that'll be back into the engine up there. Stock throttle body, stock map sensor. I am supposed to run a mass airflow with a big housing, but that depends on if I have room for the intake, which I'll do eventually. Oil feed line comes off of the oil pressure sensor. I just put a little T in there, capped off one side because it's actually a 4-way, just in case, you know, I ever want to run compound turbo, twin turbo setup, I can just run another feed line off of there. But some people do run it off of that port on the side of the head as well. For the oil drain, I come around the manifold and just into this port down here. That's actually for locking the crank tool. Some people don't like to run it there because, you know, it's draining onto a spinning crank supposedly, so it could cause effects. Maybe you may never notice, so I'm just sending it anyways. I've ran it there for a while, and you have a little bit of seepage there, so I put a rubber gasket on it to hopefully seal that up some more. Repainted the block since I had everything apart. New water pump. I'm getting new pulleys. They should be here tomorrow. I tried to clean up as much as I could. Put new block off plates off because I had DIY ones that I just made back in the day. I'm probably just going to use my old front mount off my front clip. I believe the bottom one, yeah, that's my original front clip. So, I mean, not original to the car, it's been replaced. But it's got a nice dark front mount, so it's kind of sleeper. Eventually I'm going to redo all these pipes once I get a TIG set up, so then I don't have so many couplers on it. Welded that up yesterday. That's the cat off the GTI, since I don't have a cat off my Rabbit anymore. I got rid of it a while ago. So I made a little test pipe with some V-bands, so if I ever need to pop it in, I can. Well, that's it. Only got an AC compressor and all the pulleys and belts coming in the mail tomorrow. And then the engine's ready to go in. A few things I just remembered that I forgot to mention. Wastegate's running. I believe I put a 5-pound spring in there because I do have a boost controller. I forget what that is. What is that? It's a turbo something. Turbo Smart, maybe. I got that for a pretty good deal from a guy I know. I forgot where I put my blow-off valve, but it's laying around here somewhere in my piles of parts, because I'm going to be stripping down the whole Rabbit, maybe turning the rear end into a trailer, and I don't know what I'm doing with the rest of the parts yet. But I don't know where I put the blow-off valve. It's a pretty big blow-off valve, and it usually sits right here. It's the piece that connects the intercooler piping to throttle body. And yes, that is an exhaust clamp holding on the coupler onto my throttle body. I had so many issues when I first built this car with this popping off, just due to how smooth the throttle body is, and I tried to roughen it up and whatnot, but I just could not get it. I put 2 clamps on there as tight as I could, but hose clamps, they can only go so tight, you know, like, and then they break themselves or split apart or strip or whatever. So I put this sucker on there, and I have not had a problem since. It is a bit of a tight fit. I probably could have ground down the bracket a little bit to fit in there better, but like, it works and it's cheap. So that's how this car was first built. It was on a budget. Everything was done as cheaply as I could, besides the things I knew I couldn't cheap out on. And now we're doing it the proper way. Got the oil line routed, always snaking around. I got a pretty long one because it used to come around, I think, here, because the turbo's been all over the place. It hasn't always been that tight up against the engine, because I used to run it like up here, but that was a hoodless setup. I wanted to put a hood on it eventually so I could drive it in the rain, and so it got tucked back a lot more. But yeah, that's my 2.5T. By the way, don't forget your check valves if you're making a NA to boosted setup. It's definitely very important not to run boost into your oil passages and the inside.